and welcome to another tip from the Clear Measure DevOps playlist. Today we're going to be talking about adding a database migration to an ASP.NET application that happens to be using SQL Server. So when we're developing an ASP.NET web application using a DevOps workflow, we must use source control to our advantage. We're sharing database schema changes with our team, and we're deploying those downstream. So here we're going to see how to make a change to our SQL Server database schema so that our team receives the change and so that the next deployment of the application includes the change to our schema. So let's walk through that. If we look in our database currently, we see that we have a few tables. We'll look at the employee table here. We're not going to dig deep into the application, but we want to add a hired on date. Now, I added it here, but if I was to look at the script that we currently have, right up here, there's no hired on date. And of course, if we run our little tool here, Control F5, and recreate the schema from scratch, I happen to be using AliSQL, and every time a private build or a continuous integration build is run, this routine is going to run. It's going to run all the SQL files we see over here. And if I come back over here and refresh, open up the tables, show you the employee table and the columns, you notice that, well, guess what? Every time it gets recreated, our hired on date is gone. And of course, if we need to change schema changes with our team or deploy them downstream, we need to have it in source control, and we need to have that change in SQL. So here's how we do it. And by the way, we're using AliSQL as our database migration tool, very similar to Roundhouse, very similar to EF Core 2, very similar to Redgate ReadyRoll. All the migration tools use the same premise of having a directory of SQL files, and if you run them in order, you're going to get the right schema. Now, some other tools can do all kinds of other stuff, but that's the premise. If you have a directory of SQL files, you can't go wrong. You can do anything. So let's go ahead and design here, and we're going to have this table. Let's go ahead and create our hired on date. By the way, before I go any further, here's our build script right there. And if we go up in our private build, you can see that we've created our database over again, so that's why it didn't work. That's why it blew away our column. So if we say date time to, and go into our table designer, generate change script, and we can look at it real quick. Very, very simple change script, very, very simple. And so where do we want to save this? Well, we want to save it. Here's within my working directory, inside source, database script, update. You can see that mirrored here, database script, update over here. And just let me copy that and paste it in here. And notice we have sequential file numbers. Well, number 16 looks like the next one, so 16, and let's see, employee hired on column SQL. Of course, you need to communicate with your team. Hey, I got number 16, because if you have collision, then you have inconsistent orderings, and you don't want to do that. So let's go ahead and save that, and if we come over here, I want to open that and refresh. Notice we have a new file. Let me go ahead and add that to our project, including project, save, and if I, of course, open it up, I mean, there's the hired on column right there. Very, very simple. We don't have any use statement, so that we can run it against any database, including production. And if I save that, if I have Control F5 to run our rebuild again, run it, and just running it locally. There's our script, number 16. And let's see, if we open up here, let's just refresh the schema, open up employee, columns, and we see hired on. If you don't believe me, hit delete that column, come back over here to our tool, and rerun it again, come back over, refresh the schema at the database level, and employee columns, there's hired on. So now, if I go and I want to share that new column with the team, all I have to do is commit, and notice that we have the SQL script changed to the CS proj, And I can say added hired on to employee table. I commit it, I push it up, and now when my team pulls down the latest from source, they get this new file, they run the private build, the new script runs, and their database has the hired on field, and continuous integration server runs the same routine. It has the hired on field, and then downstream, when we deploy to test, staging, production, any environments downstream, that SQL script is in that directory of scripts that run and get tracked. And guess what? Every downstream environment is going to get that hired on field. So that's important, and that's how to add database migration scripts to an ASP.NET web application on top of SQL Server, and really any application using SQL Server when you're going for a DevOps workflow. So hope that helps. Check out our other videos on the ClearMeasure DevOps channel.